We're here talking about starships and starship design in role-playing games, and I think it's best if we first start with a bit of an icebreaker, which is your favourite starship or spaceship in a TV show or a movie. I've got mine. What's yours, Ian?
I'm going to go for the Eagle. It's a hard choice because there's really
Right.
three.
So why the Eagle then? Because I mean, it's a little known ship. I mean, a lot of American viewers won't know what that is.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's a very functional ship, and the design is just so iconic. I mean, it looks like it should be real.
Yeah.
And the big engine at the front, look, command module at the back. It's a cracking design.
I think I like the superstructure. You know, all the gantry work on it. It's the kind of thing you'd find. You know, because you get a lot of sleek ships in space. Well, that in sleek is it the Eagle from Space 1999.
Yeah, I mean, this is a workhorse, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
again, it's one of those ships you rarely see with giant rocket nozzles on the back.
That's right.
You often see glowing lights, but you don't often see rocket nozzles, do you?
No.
That's quite cool. It reminds me of the modular cutter in Traveller. Do you think somebody copied somebody there? I don't know who copied who.
It wouldn't surprise me because some of the artwork you see similarities from that period. I mean, some of the work that Keith did looks. So surely they must have seen Space 99, because I think Space 99 was syndicated in America, so they must have seen it.
It came out.
Was it a good idea?
Was it mid 70s here when it was released? So in 77 it would have come out a lot later, and then Traveller was 77, wasn't it? Yeah. It's fascinating to think it was inspired by it, because I've never seen anything like it anywhere else, really.
No.
That sort of drop a module on the ground, fly off, pick up another module, come back, pick up the old module, that kind of thing. And the different modules can mean different things. Because what was it? There was your standard sort of travel module. What else was there?
There was the standard transporter. There was a recon eagle, apparently, a rescue eagle. That was the one that had the big stripes.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
There was.
What was the one? There was ones like the nuclear bottles. Was that like a crane or something?
Yeah, it was like a
sort of lifted
version, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's the one I had as a corgi toy.
Oh, I wish I had one of those. You know, I saw them in the shop because I always wanted one for Christmas, and I never ever got one because they were for the time. Obviously, they were expensive, but I would have loved one of those.
The freighter eagle that came with the winch and everything, it was actually white, but the others were weird. They were green or blue. It was a strange corgi thing. Green. Green
metal.
The front was green. You know, the actual command module at the front, it was green.
Well, even being 10 years old, that would have driven me insane.
They did it with Thunderbirds as well. The Thunderbird 2, they did blue. I have no idea why.
They did, yeah, they did, didn't they? Yeah,
that's right. Oh. Yeah, there was another one as well. I've only seen kits of this. There was the Lab Eagle, and it kind of had the bit in the middle, but fatter, with two big doors that sort of stuck out like an an X shape. There was that as well. I think they had the one with the boosters as well.
Yeah.
Cracking ship.
It is. It's a good. You know, if it wasn't for my choice, my second choice would have been the Eagle. You know.
Yeah. Well, my three are the Eagle. This is difficult because it's kind of all three I love. There's the Eagle, the Nostromo, and the Liberator.
Well, the Liberator. Well, that's a bit too science fiction. Too science fiction fantasy for me.
Yeah.
I class that as an alien ship. So.
Yeah.
But like you said. The more realistic, the more grounded they seem, the more I like them. So that's why my first choice, my second choice, because you nicked me first, was it would be the Nostromo.
Yeah.
Because it's not really because the externals look amazing.
Yeah.
But thinking about it entering an atmosphere, I'm just thinking it would rip it because some of the retro rockets are huge and they're facing forward. It's not streamlined at all. Then there's the huge dishes, and there's like the antennae. You think
Yeah.
this thing can't fly in atmosphere, but
No.
obviously there must be some gravity. Well, I don't know. There must be some kind of shielding for it. But despite the externals, which look amazing, but I don't know if it'd fly in atmosphere. It's for the ship. It's the internals that I love. Absolutely
Yeah.
love it because it reminds me of like oil rigs, container ships, and I've
Yeah.
watched a lot of programs set on those things, and it just oozes that kind of. Didn't Ridley Scott say he wanted the bridge to resemble the tight little over electronicized cockpit of a B-52 bomber? And so everyone gets strapped into these acceleration couches and all the instrumentations in their faces and stuff like that. And again, you don't often see that, in TV shows. People walk down, like in Andromeda or Star Trek, they walk down the lovely carpeted corridor and they slide into a lovely seat and they strap on a little buckle if anything, and they reach over to a lovely computerized screen, and it's all, they could be in the living room or something. And that, it's like you're strapping into something and you're going to be working hard, and it's like oily, and it's I just love it.
Yeah.
I just love it. And every corridor with the it's set the octagonal corridor throughout science fiction. I mean, Red Dwarf uses it. I mean, everybody uses it after that. The pipe work, the grating, the steam vents, the weird electronic consoles on the side. You don't know what they do, and then it moves into some white spaces with padded areas. Like the living areas are all sort of whitish, aren't they?
That's right.
The further you go from the habited areas, the more darker it gets, the more grating, the more metalwork you see. And I just absolutely love the interior. And there's no other ship in science fiction I love more, the interior anyway, than the Nostromo. I mean, the worst for me is Star Trek Next Generation. And what turned me off from that, having grown up on Star Wars, loving Star Wars, that grunginess, is I watched Star Trek Next Generation for the first few episodes, and then I never watched it again for years because I saw carpeted corridors and rooms, and I saw potted plants as well in some of the rooms. I thought, a potted plant on a starship, that's just wrong.
Don't forget the captain's fish.
Oh, yeah.
The lionfish, didn't he?
I mean, probably their future, that future, is probably more realistic, to be honest, than the Nostromo gritty oil tanker future, But it just so I didn't watch Next Generation for till 2008. Then I just binge watched the entire thing because the potted plants and the carpeted corridors put me off.
Far too comfortable shit there.
Oh, I think so. Yeah. So if we talk about role-playing ship design, then I mean, you've done tons of it. I mean, I've done a
few.
I've done my fair share of like creating ships, but you took it to a new level, haven't you? But when I started in '82 when I bought Book 2 Classic Traveller, and started using the Book 2 system, and I used it again and again and again and again. And to me, that's the ultimate system. I mean, did you go back that far? Did you use that Book 2 Traveller?
I mainly use High Guard.
Well, that doesn't surprise me because you're a professional, you see. I thought of myself as an amateur.
Excuse me a second.
Why did you move to High Guard? I never moved to High Guard. You did. Why did you do that?
I think I wanted massive ships. Yeah. I think the first ship I built was something stupid like a planetoid. It was like 1 million tons, and there were cruisers sat inside it. It was just.
I thought that was an urban legend that's what everybody did when they got the set, but you actually did it. Yeah.
I think it was like 1 million tons. It was called something like the Nemesis because I think I was reading 2000 AD, and it had, of course, the spinal column. I think it was an asteroid, and I think inside there were like 2 or 3 cruisers and had multiple mercenary cruisers. It was just what's the point?
Yeah.
Let's see what we can do with it.
That's what people do when they get a rule set to build something. They always build the most ridiculous things they possibly can. Don't they? They don't build anything average. They build ridiculous things.
I'm sensible now, though. I just go, 200 tons. That's fine.
Yeah, well, because
anything over that.
That's because you've got to deck plan it later, and there's no way you're deck planning a 1 million ton ship, is there?
The biggest ship I've deck planned is 50,000.
Oh my
for
god! No,
the
that wasn't square by square, though, was it? It can't have been.
pretty close.
Oh my god!
Fortunately, I had a kind of a plan to work to because I was doing something for the lad who was doing some work for Mongoose, and he was desperate. And he said, "Look, can you help me out?" Fortunately, the ship was a sort of I think like a massive hospital leisure ship for a fleet. It's kind of a fleet auxiliary, so it wasn't too bad. I think I only had to detail like 3 or 4 decks, but he kind of given me a shape, and I kind of fitted into it. It wasn't too bad, but that's the biggest. And I think that's it. Anything over 5,000 tons, you just don't bother.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I mean, the biggest one I've ever done for one of the hostile books of 5,000 tons.
Yeah,
I really had to plan it out carefully beforehand. I drew had to prepare all the sheets on. Well, I work on paper.
yeah,
I'm the Stone Age, and I drew. I I taped large pieces of paper together to
oh
create a
god,
deck, and then I created a second set and a third set and a fourth set to do the different decks. So I could visually see how everything matched together. I could put them on top of
yeah,
each other because it's so easy to make a mistake, and you've got a hatch here on one deck, and it doesn't match the hatch on the other deck, and you've built all the other
yeah,
rooms around it, and you can't. It's so difficult to change it. So I was paranoid that the access to one deck always matched the access to the other deck. Without that, you're in a right mess, really, aren't you?
yeah. That's one of the biggest problems with a massive ship. You've got to match deck A with deck B, deck C,
Yeah,
deck D,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
move between the decks because how many people don't put lifts in?
I know.
Big
Yeah,
ship needs a
yeah.
bigger.
But
Even a small ship, I think even an 800-ton freighter, a lift is perfect. A
yeah.
cargo lift, even a personnel lift.
Well, I watch a lot of Mighty Ships and things like that,
Oh yeah,
and the amount of times in Mighty Ships, the engineers have got some. They need to replace a part in the engine room, and they've
yeah,
got equipment in the. They've got the part in the cargo on the cargo deck. They've got all these spare parts, so they have to get this crankshaft to the engine room, and so they go up in the cargo lift and then along the corridors. And I think if you haven't got a lift, you can't even get spare parts from one part of the
yeah,
ship to the other, or missiles, or you can't get your supply. A pallet of supplies, just even a pallet of supplies and food. You can't get them from the cargo deck to your galley. You've got to carry everything by hand, and nobody does that today. Never mind,
no.
in the year 3000, really. But that brings me on to
Imagine in combat the
oh
problem you're gonna have. Yeah, I need a ton of missiles. Right, there's some in the cargo bay.
yeah.
Right, who's gonna move them? You need a lift.
Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, it's one missile per man, isn't it? Carry it up. But
Oh
that brings
god.
me to the other point, really, which is all the things that people forget to put on their deck plans. And there's loads of them, isn't there? A lift is one, but
Freshers,
what's that? Freshers.
freshers,
Yeah,
toilets,
yeah,
heads,
yeah.
a laundry.
Laundry. Yeah.
Well, I think with laundry, some people say the fresher covers that. Right,
Well,
so
no. I mean, if you've gone into a shower in an ensuite
yeah,
bathroom in a hotel, you think, can this be a toilet, a shower, and a
yeah,
laundry all at once? And the answer is no, no, I don't think so.
no,
And I think there's often ships, these big ships, they have, talking about mighty ships again, they have firefighting drills regularly, and so they have firefighting lockers.
yeah,
Big battleships, they have multiple firefighting lockers on each deck. Like they have oxygen masks, they have fire suits, they have fire extinguishers, they have pressure hoses, they have all kinds of equipment. And you think, well, where does that go on a starship? You need
yeah.
lockers. So
Damage control lockers.
yeah, I always put.
I've definitely done that.
Yeah,
I've definitely put them in ships.
yeah. You've got to put if you put loads of lockers in, you're covering all your bases really.
Yeah,
And plus, that I think the lockers they fill in all those little spaces that you don't know what to do with.
yeah.
I find it quite handy.
I know you've done that with your designs. You've handed me a rough, and I've tarted it up and said, "There's a suit locker, there's a locker, there's a damage control locker." It's perfect. I mean, they're quite big. They're not going to be little. I mean, to fit a suit plus gear, it's going to be a fair size. I mean, what, half a meter? Yeah. So yeah, put them on the map. I know someone had a point. Why don't we put in things like water and food? And I said, well, do we need it?
Well, you
You
never
want to do
see
that? Fine.
you never see life support, do you, either?
No.
On ships, but
No.
I just take that as to be part of the engineering section.
That's right. If we're not designing blueprints here, are we? We're designing something to play. You can miss stuff out. If a player wants it, we'll just go, well, it's there. It's between the decks. It's in the cargo hold.
Yeah. I've seen deck plans of the International Space Station.
Yeah.
And I've got the Haynes manual for that as well, which is awesome. And they've got our support system all mapped out in there, and they've described it, how it works, the different sections to it, what goes where. So that was quite an eye opener, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can certainly get inspiration from looking at real things, but if you want that kind of detail, fine, do it. Yeah. There's no hard and fast rules in what we do.
When I go on a ferry, I'm always looking around thinking, would any of this be on a starship? Would any of this be on a starship? Oh, that looks good. I take photographs of signs. So that looks like a good warning sign. I'll take a photograph of that. Because you never know. All this stuff is practical and useful, and it'll carry on being practical and useful, I think. Yeah. So
there's a lot of spare space we don't use between the decks. There's tons of space.
Yeah.
It's volume, isn't it? I keep forgetting it's volume.
Yeah. It's mostly for pipe work and that kind of thing, isn't it? But you could use it for other things as well, yeah.
Hunting for aliens.
I was trying to think what else the people miss out, but there's like gyms, a gym.
Yeah, we do them. Offices.
Yeah, an office. You need at least one office. I mean,
the captain needs a day room.
There's a day room. I mean, sometimes the first officer has an office.
Yeah.
The purser will have an office.
Yeah.
On a naval ship, the logistics officer has an office. The doctor will have an office. These little places, and to be honest, it adds to the interest of the ship to have all these things on. It doesn't detract from it, does it? Really? I think it just adds.
That's saying about inspiration. Just find a freighter, or I've looked at the deck plans for the Bismarck, and you think there's a lot of stuff in here. There's an entire room just for peeling spuds.
Oh,
it's a German ship. And I was looking at a ship, and there's some rooms. You go, what the hell's that? And it's like it's for food storage.
Oh yeah,
things like that. I was trying to do a freighter mount, a normal sort of 1930s, 50s freighter mount, and they've even got a citadel inside it, and it's basically a safe room. That's something modern ships have.
On a civilian ship.
They have ships, say, going past war zones. They'll have a safe room, and they call it the citadel. Unless I've got it completely wrong, I apologise to anyone who's a merchant marine. But yeah, they'll have a safe room. They basically go in. It's like a panic room.
Oh,
so the ship gets boarded. Yeah. They basically sit it out in there.
I guess they have those today. I bet they do.
Yeah. So you could, in theory, put it on a spaceship if you really want to. But that's another thing that we need on ships, is especially if they're going through war zones, armories and places to defend the ship. If it's a civilian ship, you can put choke points in. Do you remember that White Dwarf article about defending the ship? Think of that.
Did you use High Guard? Did you go any further? Did you go when Mega Traveller came out? Did you go to what was it called? The Fire Fusion Steel book? Did you go?
No. I looked at it and went, oh no, it's too much.
Yeah, me too.
I'm a simple guy.
Yeah. Well, that's what I like about Classic Traveller. It was modularly simple, and I like that. You could adapt it. It was simple. That was my favourite, really. And then Mongoose Traveller, that reverted back to sort of book 2, but it added a lot of dash from High Guard. It added batteries and it added extra weapons and that kind of thing. And so they
removed the weight for computers.
Yeah, but I agreed with. But then when I came to write Hostile and I saw the size of the computer room in the Nostromo, I thought, really, I should have brought all that back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other little point is you have a bridge that's 20 tons. That's a lot of space. So
it is, isn't it? Yeah.
You just borrow from that. That's the biggest tip I'll tell anyone. if you've got 20 tons of space, that's a volume. That's a lot of space. Use it for all kinds of things: avionics, sensors, an office, stuff you've not included, a computer room, sensors room.
Yeah, you've put a fresher in there before. Yeah.
Right.
Because 20 tons, that's the minimum of a bridge size, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the minimum is 20 tons, and that's 40 squares. So
it's big.
It's not just a huge empty room with like 2 seats in it for the pilot and navigator. Yeah. You're going to have so much stuff in there.
CIC, hollow table.
Yeah. Navigation area, yeah.
Jacuzzi.
Ship's locker and...
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know if it's you or somebody's also put like a mini galley in there. Like a little mini kitchen for long periods on watch and things like that, which is a great idea. All that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So you could have a bridge crew wardroom, couldn't you?
A wardroom, yeah. There's a lot you can do, and that if you're stuck for things, that 20 tons of bridge is a good place to stick stuff. I mean, I used to always stick avionics and stuff in there.
Yeah.
Because that's good. And a computer room. I always stick a little computer room in there.
Oh yeah, sensor rooms as well. Or in a small ship, I'll make the computer room the sensor room, or it's like the ship's electronic systems surveillance room. It's a it's a multi-purpose room.
Yeah, and like you said, a little office. That's a great idea. That. I'm just thinking with all these traveller rules, they often don't let you build starships from anywhere, do they? There's like basic assumptions. You're running through every rule set. I mean, there's like the jump drive, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's like hydrogen fuel.
Yeah.
There's gravity drive.
Yeah.
Artificial gravity on all the decks, and a fusion power plant. I mean, that is a standard on every rule set, really, isn't it? I know that they do offer some options in Mongoose Traveller, but that was your basic, wasn't it?
That's right.
And I think it was a bit remiss not to expand it out. But I think Mark Miller, when he set it all up, he was looking at a certain style of science fiction to emulate, wasn't he? He wasn't thinking of like NASA style sci-fi.
Yeah, I know Mongoose added things like the hyperdrive, different types of drive.
Just to push it out.
In one of the books, there was a psionic drive.
Yeah.
I know, of course, with the Cepheus Engine Ship's Designer's Guide, we have added lots of options.
Oh, yeah, you've got reaction drives and stuff in there, haven't you? Yeah, that's why Mark, is it Mark Johnson's? Michael Johnson's.
Michael Johnson, yeah.
He's put the... he's made it into a multi-use science fiction starship design. So you could use it for creating ships from The Expanse to Star Wars to Traveller, couldn't you, really? And that's what we always wanted, I think.
That's right. He's added things like quad turrets as well, and some tech that's a bit beyond what Traveller is. So there's some high-level super tech, as it were. Not much.
Yeah, what kind of Star Trek stuff?
No, sort of like I think there's an armor called nanoflux, and literally it's like armor that adapts as you hit it.
Oh, right.
An ablative armor.
Yeah.
We're actually working on the second edition, and there's a few nice toys in there. Like stations, finally. That's one thing we've been missing.
Yeah. I mean, stations are one step further than starships, but you could use a lot of the same mechanics, can't you, to build those?
Just no drive.
Yeah.
Instead of a very small station keeping drive.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote that orbital platforms book based on a lot of the discussions we had about space stations. Yeah. And it wasn't. I used the basic mechanics of the starships, but then I thought, well, I want to deal with huge factories and things. So there's factories and there's workshops and there's mining sections, and all I could do really there was to sort of generalize those areas. It's very difficult to deal with corridors and rooms with something so big. I mean, we're talking like 10,000, 15, 20,000 ton space stations. So you've got to sort of generalize what you're doing. I don't know what Michael Johnson's approach is going to be on that. I guess it might be something similar, because he took
zones.
He's going to go down to small scale.
Yeah, to say that zone is an industrial zone, that
Yeah.
zone is a factory zone, that zone is a agricultural zone.
Yeah.
I think these ships these things are going to be so big, you're not going to map them. You say,
Yeah, I think that's the way to go, isn't it? Really, yeah.
One of the things we're discussing about really big things is don't map the ship, just map the important bits, the bits you need, like the command section, the bridge, maybe a couple of rooms. But the really big ship, just zone it out, just draw a big diagram. I mean, a few systems use it, like Coriolis and Alien. I can name a few. They just go, there's a vague area, that's it. You don't have to go mad. Just point to that bit. That's the bridge. It's that way. So if you're online play, it's great. Areas like your node system, it's brilliant for online play because you're not.
Oh yeah, the node system the one in Hostile Solo.
Nodes is a really cracking idea.
Yeah.
So you're not going mad, and you're not going to spend hours trying to draw a 50,000 ton space station. You imagine trying to deck plan, say, Babylon 5 or DS9. You're going to go insane.
People listening who have bought orbital platforms won't realise that at the start of the year, we tried to deck plan. We tried to create a modular space station, and I spent weeks and weeks in January, February, with A4 sheets of paper, squared paper, deck planning all the different modules that could fit together, and that every sheet fitted with every other sheet in a huge sort of Lego set of deck plans. So there's a manufacturing area, you could connect it to another manufacturing area, then you could connect that to a hotel section, and that would connect to a operations center, and you could keep adding these together. But it absolutely blew my mind, and in the end, the weight of it all just collapsed in on itself. And I just couldn't do it. So what came out in the orbital platforms book was the rules to create the stats for the stations. We were going to include, you were going to deck plan everything out, weren't you? And I was pitying you at the time because I thought it's driving me mad just designing these things. You'll have no chance. So I scrapped that idea in the end and just brought out the station design rules because it was just absolutely mind-numbingly huge. And it's just untenable. You're right. You can't. If you can do it, it's a huge project. And what's the point? Are you going to get the use out of it? So we had to drop that.
Like I said, just draw a diagram of the station, like a side view or even a top-down view, and say that's that area, that's that area, that's that area. There you go. And for especially online play, perfect. I mean, I was playing a Coriolis a week ago. And literally, it's a big station, and we went, right, we'll go towards medical, and it works really well, and it was a huge station. I think if you had a map of that, it would be a nightmare.
Yeah, I think you'd probably spend more time trying to work through the map like a dungeon crawl.
This was ideal.
And just say you are there. Yeah. I wondered if you. This is a section I don't know a lot about. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about 3D modelling that you do, because I've done deck plans for years, but unlike you, I always use squared paper because that's where I come from, and that's my limit. Lots of squared paper, build up my deck plans, and I'm happy with those. But you go one stage further in it because you don't just do the deck plans for a starship. You'll do the stats, and also you'll do 3D modelling of the externals as well. Right. And it fascinates me how I can send you some stats for a ship. You will create both the deck plans and the external model, and everything will match up perfectly. So if there's a little airlock between the engines, it'll be on the deck plan in just the right place. I mean, where do you start? When I give you or when you create your own list of stats for a ship, a 2,000-ton ship or an 800-ton ship, where do you begin with all that?
I think it's like anything. You just have a rough shape in your head. You can base it on anything. I mean, the last ship I did was a very ovoid, so it's quite organic looking. So that's the first thing. Have a rough idea, especially bear in mind what does the ship do. If it goes into atmosphere, it's going to be slightly aerodynamic, so it's going to have curves. It might have wings. If it's just going to sit in space like a mining ship, it's going to be a brick. If it's going to be the Nostromo, it's just going to go up and down, and that's it. It doesn't need massive wings, flight surfaces, thrusters, whatever. So that's the third thing. I always have a rough idea in my head.
Yeah.
I may even normally I'll draw a very quick doodle on a piece of paper. Go right, it's going to be that shape, and then so the next layer is working out. See, I do is one of two ways. I'll draw the ship as a rough doodle. Right, there you go. It's going to be that shape. I'll either draw the maps out, like deck by deck, so everything fits in. I use basic CAD software. It's actually called SketchUp. And the way it does it is you can instantly click a section. It'll say how big it is. So you know how many squares are in that section. So it's perfect. It'll give you the area. You can work out the tonnage from that, the volume, blah, blah, blah. Or sometimes I'll design the whole ship from scratch, just do a model of a ship and then fit the deck plans in it, which can be awkward, but it works sometimes.
Yeah.
Matter of fitting it in to a space you've already got. But in your head, you've kind of got an idea, right? This is a 500-ton ship. It's not going to be massive.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a bit of juggling between a model and the maps. Now, with some people, for example, I do the stuff for Independence games. Mike's already drawn the deck plans. I literally make the model from the deck plan.
Right.
So I'm actually using the deck plan as a guide. So the deck plan and the model match, or at least close enough. You can't go 100%. You'll just go insane. So that's something. I mean, with the stats, I'll always write down the stats, and then I'll have two columns. One column will say squares, and one column will say surface area. So that's something I use in the CAD program. So if I click on, I'll actually paint in, say, a red section. All right, that's the bridge. It's exactly 20 tons. Perfect.
Yeah. Oh, you sent you sent me those rough drawings before.
That's right.
Where you've coloured everything out. Yeah.
And then always kind of work out right where the decks align to each other, roughly where you're going to put the access between each deck. Does it need a lift? Does it need a cargo lift?
Yeah.
Or is this section going to be? Bear in mind, you can have a massive deck that's just could be 20 decks high but completely open. So you've got to think like that. You've got to think in 3D really.
Yeah.
Especially engineering, it doesn't have to be deck by deck by deck. It could be 3 decks high but one space.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So you've only got one drawn deck, but it covers 3 decks worth of engineering. Yeah. And also you can compress the space if you want. You can. We always work on roughly 3 meters deck height. It's actually about 2 if you allow half a meter for the space between the decks. You could compress it. And also bear in mind the ships aren't square. So you're going to lose or gain space by the shape of the ship. So you can be very fluid. I mean, I think there was an unwritten rule. As long as it's squares on the map, it's fine. Yeah.
We can go over it. Just expand it.
Yeah, I think.
And then once I've got that, I've got a model, and I just detail the model, and there you go.
I think you do a great job of matching them up. I remember we were working on the for the orbital game where the ships are really accurate, sort of NASA level sort of accuracy.
Yeah.
It was the Far Horizons for the Far Horizons book. He did a beautiful job of creating this one of a kind exploration ship.
Oh, I did enjoy that one. Yeah.
Going out towards Pluto. And I said, I said, I think at one point I did say, I gushed a bit and said, oh, it's a beautiful design, and you've got the rotary arm for the accommodation, so there's 1G, and the drives look brilliant. There's the fuel pods are there, and they're the right size for the fuel that's on the stats, and then there's the bridge at the front, and it looked awesome. And I said, well, what's that lump there? What is that supposed to be? And you said, oh, it's there, it's on the deck plans. It was some kind of airlock EVA module or something you added. And it was there, and it was on the deck plans as well. And every lump and bump on the ship, it was referenced on the deck plans, and I thought, that blows me away. That does. That's what I wondered. How do you do it? Do you start on the inside? Do you start on the outside? But it sounds like it either varies or it's a bit of both. To be honest,
it is a very fluid method. I mean, starting from the deck plans, it's fine. I think with that one, I did start with the deck plans. Yes, I did because it's a tail sitter, so it's the engines at the bottom.
Yeah.
The thrust is going through the axis,
Yeah.
like the ship in The Expanse.
Yeah.
I think I started at the bottom. There's a fair amount of leeway with the fuel tanks. We also had a massive shield on that as well because the drive was so hot.
That's right. Yeah,
we had a radiation shield.
Fission reactor.
The top seems to remember the top end of the ship was roughly based on one of the Apollo modules.
Yeah.
There were some windows. They were based on the modules, the windows on the ISS. I just worked way down. I think I started at the top, worked way down.
I gave you the stats. I didn't design it. Sometimes I give you the deck plans, don't I? And sometimes I just give you the stats. But on that one, you just did all the deck plans and everything. It was quite very impressive. I was thinking, about. I read somewhere about what was it? Firefly, and I was thinking about the deck plans to Firefly and how it relates to like the Aliens films, and how ship designs in films are a little bit different. Because I remember somebody said, like the director, about Firefly, he said the corridors. Somebody said the corridors are too wide. They're huge. Why are they so wide? And he said it's because the characters need to be able to act. And if you've got a tiny little corridor, they've got nothing to do. They've got no movement. They can't move forwards or backwards. So the corridors are about twice as wide as they should be, so that the actors can actually have range of movement. And I thought that was really interesting. And also, they often in TV dramas as well, especially, they always go around corners, so that they don't have to build huge corridors in the studio. So deck plans in TV shows and films are often not based on sort of the physics that you and me use. They're based on other concepts, really. But I think the Nostromo, for me, it did a bit of both, and it looked like what it should be.
Yeah.
Things like this got 2001: A Space Odyssey. I know it's not a hostile kind of ship. Again, it's just beautifully designed. I mean, it could have been designed by NASA engineers, that one, couldn't it? It's so good.
It was very well thought out, that.
Yeah.
With the Nostromo, I believe they built it very claustrophobic, but then they had to pull off the roofs and the ceilings so they get the lighting in.
What ship was that?
Nostromo.
Oh, really?
I was reading about it today. They said they actually built it so it was really claustrophobic for the crew.
They built all the corridors that linked together in a studio.
Pretty much, yeah.
All together, so they could run from one area of the ship to the other.
Right. But they had to take the ceilings off because of the lighting.
Yeah. I mean, that's actually. I've seen photographs of the set from outside of the corridors, and it's just a network of sort of corridors and stuff from outside. I thought that's brilliant. It talk about you feel like you're really there when you're running around in actual corridors. Yeah.
But when you see the plans versus the ship, it's strange, but it works. It's kind of that works. It's a massive ship, but tiny internal space.
Yeah, well, I suppose a modern day oil tanker, the crew live in a tiny little bit right at the back, and the ship's like 50,000 tons going out that way. So I suppose that's quite realistic in a way.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, there's going to be lots of space the crew can't access or just won't go near, like the fuel tanks. Engineering spaces.
Yeah. So I think I think we've covered a lot of things here. I don't know what else. Yeah. We can talk about the hostile ships, but I mean, they are based on. I mean, I said to you, can you create a ship that looks like the Nostromo, and you can do that really easily. You did it really easily because we created.
Was that the Conrad? Oh no, we've not done the Conrad.
Conrad.
That's another show. It's in the book, but we've not done the deck plans.
Oh no.
Yes.
And it
is called Conrad.
Did this little space station. One ship I would like to do is a military ship. That'd be awesome. It really would.
I'm up for it.
Yeah. With
that's the one thing I keep meaning to go back to. Start doing hostile ships.
Yeah.
Because I think we hit on a good thing there.
Yeah, well, you can get all gritty and grungy, and you could do hostile ships really well. Obviously, with your love of the Nostromo. But I mean, a military ship with that sort of shuttle hangars and like the armory and the sort of the marine ready rooms and all that kind of stuff will be absolutely beautiful. And the turrets and the magazines for all the missile banks, because it's all missiles and railguns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That would be great. Yeah. Another one I'd like to see is there's a colony, not support ship. There's a colony sort of startup ship. I'd like to see that as well, because it's got huge bays, tractors and agricultural produce, and there's like huge frozen cryo areas for all the frozen colonists all in suspension waiting to get to the colony and stuff. I'd like to see that. I don't know what you should get out of it, having an adventure, to be honest, but
it's funny. We were talking earlier about how do you come up with ideas. It's the description gives me an idea
of the ship.
Reading the text, I'll think, you know what, that could look like that.
Yeah.
And then I really save myself a lot of time by doing a few doodles. I found that's one thing. It's something I learned from art school. Is sketch things out. I don't do it half as much as I should do, but it will save me time.
Yeah.
So, like you're saying about the massive colony ship, I'm kind of seeing something between the Nostromo, the Covenant, and maybe something from one of the big generation colony ships you see from one of the books.
Yeah.
That is one of my ideas. Is one day to do a big ship, but do a colony ship, an actual, generation ship, or just a sleeping ship. Something you could really go to town on. Say it's going to leave, go for deep space, and then off it goes. The adventures you could have aboard that. And you could do, a 60-year game.
Yeah.
And then eventually land, set up the colony, and etc.
You're gonna have to think for a ship like that. It's not just a gym and a locker and like a laundry. You're gonna have to think of absolutely for that. That ship is gonna have to include absolutely everything for a civilization. So you're talking big stakes there. You can't miss anything out on that one. It's got to have everything. It'd be a bit like Ringworld or something like that,
Well, like I said, you wouldn't design. You'd do all the stats, of course.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't draw every tiny piece of the ship. You just do a very complicated, detailed diagram in the drive section. There'd be a section at the front, maybe like a shield for deep space flight. There'd be a sleeper section, but you would say do the command bridge for the wake crew. You would do the sleeper section. You may do the cargo section, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Engineering, maybe an example of another section. That's it. You wouldn't need to do the entire ship, but I think it'd be an interesting project one day.
Oh, did you hear there's a Rendezvous with Rama film at some point in production? I don't know exactly how far along it is.
Ooh.
I mean, that's again. I guess so. That's a world ship, isn't it? That one. But it's
what was that? Was that the MacArthur?
No.
The
MacArthur that went out.
Yeah,
meet it. Yeah, that's a great book. But the ship.
I love the book.
The Rendezvous, the Rama itself, it's got rotating section, gravity.
That's right.
And it's got a C, which is like a cylindrical C. God, that's brilliant. And the robots as the aliens. I love that book. Yeah.
That's it. It is the Endeavour, yeah.
Is it Endeavour?
Yes. Was it Darwin? Oh, anyway.
I can't. I thought MacArthur was in The Mote in God's Eye.
That's right.
Was it in that?
I think it is.
Getting all our science fiction mixed up.
Well, the
Darwin rings a bell because didn't they have sentient chimps on board as well?
The Endeavour
on the Rendezvous with Rama. They didn't do much. They stayed on the ship, I think.
Sentient chimps. Or was that the sequel?
I've not read that, so it can't be that one.
They're okay. The next one's better.
Oh, is it really?
It's not better, I should say. It's okay.
Yeah. I'll have to read it. I must get on because the first one was brilliant. What software do you use for the 3D modelling?
It's something called SketchUp. And
you use that throughout, do you? Right from the beginning to the end?
Yeah, I might use an external rendering engine for drawings, the actual pictures, but then I'll Photoshop it, do whatever. I tend to try and do a lot of work on the ship, so it's almost slightly traditional. Once it gets to the illustration, I'll put like burn marks on it, decals, blah blah blah.
That's after.
Don't want to.
Right, and that's during the rendering process, is it? That's like a 2D.
Yeah.
2D thing.
So what I do is I basically draw out the plans roughly in SketchUp,
Yeah.
which gets the shape. So you've seen those color diagrams, and so I'll have like I know where everything is, where the bridge is.
Yeah.
And then I export it as it's called a DWG file. Then I open it in Illustrator, and that's when I put all the detail in.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But because I've drawn it in SketchUp, SketchUp's also a 3D modeling program. It's not doesn't just do flat stuff; it can do modeling. So that's how I kind of combine the deck plans with the model. The deck plans are in the same program and making the modeling. So you're working straight onto the actual deck plan shape itself.
Oh, that's really handy. That is then. It keeps all it.
Plan shape itself.
Oh, that's really handy. That is then. It keeps all together.
It will actually be the scale.
Yeah. Right. It's been brilliant talking to you in such detail. Because obviously I've worked with you for years on this.
We could do this for hours.
But I've never talked to you in sort of depth on how it's all made. So it's been really fascinating.
Yeah. It's good for me because I think, how do we do it?
Yeah.
I mean, I tell you, how do I actually do it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it sounds like you do it in a lot of different ways based on the ship and what the customer wants, really.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've had literally someone say, "Can you design me a spaceship?" And I've literally started, "Well, how big is it? What does it do?"
Yeah.
So I'll do all the stats. Or they'll say, "There's the stats. There you go." Or like with John and Mike, they'll say, "Right, we need this ship. Here's a deck plan," because Mike's actually I think he's a civil engineer or something. So he actually uses AutoCAD. So all his deck plans are big AutoCAD deck plans, and they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Bit confusing sometimes. That is one thing, because he does them. I have to kind of interpret what's going on in his head, and it can be very, very tricky sometimes.
Right. There's me.
But if you do it yourself, it's a lot easier.
When I send you a deck plan, it's drawn in pencil on squared paper, and I don't fax it to you. I'm not that old fashioned, but I scan it in and send it to you. So that's
you do.
You don't get anything more clever than that, really.
I've seen the ones we've done. Keep thinking, you know what? We can make these a lot more interesting.
Right.
Because I was thinking, and this is. I know we're trying to finish. I was thinking we could take the middle bits and then just add chunks of, blocky sections on the front. They would be part of the drawing, and it's like the maps in Alien, the Alien RPG. They're quite chunky,
yes.
But inside they're quite simple.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do like those maps, but I think they do strain my eyes for a little bit. With the green on black.
Yeah.
They look beautiful, but I think to use them day after day, I think I much prefer the black and white traveler maps. I think they're just the right scale, just the right kind of layout to make your eye follows down the corridors, and it's a nice, easy look, isn't it? Yeah.
Having played the first adventure online, it'd be quite good in black and white, but it's quite atmospheric in black and green, and blue.
Especially on a screen as well.
We even had the shadow effects. The light, the fog of war.
Oh yeah.
And then to make it even worse, I added the motion tracker.
Oh, beautiful.
There's actually a function, the motion tracker.
Oh, beautiful.
There's actually a function motion tracker, and online it's quite scary.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. Yeah. Right, Ian. Well, we'll leave it there. And thanks so much for spending. But I really appreciate it, because it's I do a lot of it, and you are the master of it. So thanks ever so much for that. That's brilliant. Cheers.